This bloke here that for some reason was hiding in the bushes is one of the 7 founding members of the Fabian Society, a big fan of gas chambers, and I'm sure everything he's got to say is going to be perfectly reasonable.
Oh, lady. Well, this is a surprise. Have you all come to see me, ladies and gentlemen? Well, I should never have expected this. Oh, well, it's really extremely kind of you. I'm very glad to see you. You know, I'm very glad you've come, because I like people to see me. I don't know how it is, but people who only know me from reading my books, or sometimes even from seeing my plays, get a most unpleasant impression of me. And the people who really meet me, as you have been kind enough to meet me now, well, they see that I am a most harmless person. I'm quite a kindly person, you know. But there are an extraordinary number of people whom I want to kill.
We'll go through the full clips of his murderous fantasies in a minute. I wanted to open with this incoherent nonsense to show you what a complete moron this guy is.
But still, it's not necessary for me always to look as genial as I'm trying to look now. Of course, I can put on the other thing. For instance, now that is what I call my Mussolini stunt. They, by the way, I think in justice to Signor Mussolini, I ought to tell you that he has a very wonderful head. He has a wonderful brow which comes down to here. But the difficulty is that he can't take it off. Now, if you watch me, I can put on that imposing look that terrifies you, a Mussolini look. But, now just watch. I can take it off. Now,
They gave
Signor
this guy a
Mussolini
Nobel
cannot
Prize.
take it off. He is condemned, although he is a most amiable man, he is condemned to go through life with that terrible and imposing expression which really does a great deal of injustice to his kindly nature. But I can put it on, and I can take it off, and do all sorts of things. One thing, of course, that I'm very glad that you've all seen me here tonight is that you'll know me when you see me again. Now, I'll tell you something that happened to me the other day. I was at Conway in North Wales. I was in the street. A little girl came over to me. She pulled out an autograph book and she said, "Please give me your autograph." Well, I said, "What do you want my autograph for? I'm not Mr. Lloyd George." "Oh," she said, "I know you're not Mr. Lloyd George." Well, I said, "Now who am I?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know. I've forgotten the name, but my father told me to go and get your autograph." Now, it's quite possible that some little girl who is here on this occasion may imagine that she can get an autograph out of me that way, because I gave that little girl the autograph. But you won't get me a second time, so it's not the slightest use trying that on. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid I'm always an extremely busy man. At least I pretend I am. And I'm afraid I must go back to work. I must say good night. Oh, by the way, stop. This may be a matinee. Good night may not be the right thing to say. However, call it good afternoon, good day, and anyhow, goodbye and good luck. Good luck.
To all the socialists out there who get rather upset by my videos, you have to understand you can't separate socialism from eugenics. Socialism is eugenics. So here it is directly from the founder of the Fabian Society in his book Man and Superman, written in 1903. The only fundamental and possible socialism is the socialization of the selective breeding of man. In other terms, of human evolution. We must eliminate the Yahoo, or his vote will wreck the Commonwealth. Now, ironically, who wrecked the Commonwealth? The Fabian Society wrecked the Commonwealth, single-handedly. After the Red Terror, which was the first period of slaughter in the USSR, killing around 5 to 10 million people. If you don't know about that, go watch Europa the Last Battle, because it's a bit too graphic for me to get into here. Sidney and Beatrix Webb, who were two of the 7 Fabian founders, H.G. Wells, and of course George Bernard Shaw, went on a very North Korean style propaganda tour of USSR collective farms. They met with Stalin, who Shaw was a big fan of. And you can see here, well, I'll give you some footage for contrast in a minute. You can see here they've cleaned everything up. They've told everyone to leave, so there's not really any workers there that day, only sort of actors. Whilst this is happening, this is 1931, so this is the peak of the Holodomor. People are just dying around them like flies at the moment. Despite what people think, the mass starvation by the Holodomor wasn't simple mismanagement from the dodgy collective farming system. This was very targeted slaughter. So in the Ukraine, there was between 7 and 11 million deaths. In Kazakhstan and the North Caucasus, there was between 1 and 2 million. Deaths alone from the deportation of kulaks was around 2 million. So that's total roughly 15 million. And George has gone there in the peak of it all, came back, give them a massive tongue bath and said how great it was and that all the starvation is Western propaganda and all this sort of thing. This footage here is from an old Soviet propaganda film, so it's still going to be not reality, but this is what a collective farm actually looks like. This clip goes for about 4 minutes. I'm just going to let it play out to show you how completely deranged his views on the USSR are. So for context, this is filmed in 1937. The Great Purge had been going on for about 12 months. The death toll was already up to 5 million people. They'd run out of kulaks to kill, who were the owners of the farms, and now they were killing the peasants who worked the farms. They were killing all the intelligentsia. They even killed all the Bolsheviks who started this whole thing. And after this, we'll finish up with his absolutely brilliant idea that everyone's life should be up for review once every 7 years, and if the panel doesn't approve, they should be executed.
Russia flaunts her budget surplus of 150 million. Her people employed to the last man and woman. Her scientific agriculture doubling and trebling her harvest. Her roaring and multiplying factories. Her efficient rulers. Her atmosphere of such hope and security as has never before been seen in a civilized country on earth. Naturally, the contempt of the Russians for us is enormous. You fools, they are saying to us. Why can you not do as we are doing? You cannot employ nor feed your people? Well, send them to us, and if they are worth their salt, we will employ and feed them. You cannot even make your silly laws obeyed, or keep your armed gangsters and racketeers out of your streets at noonday. Well, send them to us, and you will have no more trouble with it. People who will not make good as citizens in Russia
do not trouble anyone long. And what can we say in reply but who would have thought it? Pretty feeble that, eh? Too true to be pleasant, isn't it? Well, let me give you a word or two of consolation. After all, the wonderful things the Russians are doing consist mostly in carrying out suggestions made by Americans, many of whom have been sent to jail for their pains. I am not an American, but I'm the next worst thing, an Irishman. 50 years ago, I was got hold of by an American named Henry George, who opened my eyes so surprisingly that I felt I must follow his notions up. So I tried a German Jew named Karl Marx, who opened my eyes still wider, leaving it quite plain to me that our capitalist system, though we could foozle along with it for a time at the cost of frightful unhappiness and degrading poverty for 9/10 of the population, was bound to end in the bankruptcy of civilization. 14 years later, a Russian named Ulyanov, better known to you as Lenin, followed my example and read Marx. In 1914, our imperialists involved us in a war. You tried to keep out of that war, but you were forced in. Thanks to you, that war, instead of doing what the imperialists meant it to do, abolished 3 empires, changed Europe from a royal continent to a republican one, and transformed the only European power that was bigger than the United States in population, extent of territory, and natural resources into a federation of communist republics. That was not quite what you intended, was it? Your boys were not sent to the slaughter cheering for Karl Marx and echoing his slogan, "Proletarians of all lands, unite." However, you've done it. This wonderful new power in the world, this union of socialist Soviet republics, or for short, the USSR, is what you got for your liberty loan and the blood of your young men. It was not what you intended to get, but it seems that it was what God intended you to get. Anyhow, you did it, and now you must make the best of it. I know it is hard, because you and poor old England are in the bankruptcy court, where France has already had to compound with her creditors for 10 cents to the dollar, whilst the USSR, your baby, is on the upgrade. That looks a little, doesn't it, as if the Russians were managing their affairs better than we are. However, you do not bear all the responsibility for establishing communism in Russia. You share it with me, now speaking to you, Bernard Shaw.
Me, Bernard Shaw. You've probably noticed a theme by now, where he's completely self-obsessed and the only thing he actually cares about is attention.
I never know exactly how to make my opinion clear, because I object to all punishment whatsoever. I don't want to punish anybody. But there are an extraordinary number of people whom I want to kill. Not in any unkind or personal spirit, but it must be evident to all of you, you must all know half a dozen people at least, who are no use in this world, who are more trouble than they are worth. And I think it would be a good thing to make everybody come before a properly appointed board, just as he might come before the income tax commissioners, and say every 5 years or every 7 years, just put him there and say, "Sir or Madam, now will you be kind enough to justify your existence?"
The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. George Bernard Shaw. So, by his own standards, he's a deeply unreasonable man. If you don't know why the Fabian Society is important or how much power they hold today, I suggest you check out my video on how the Fabian Society overtook the Australian government Might do another one, like a UK version, since it's just as prevalent, if not more prevalent, in the UK. The Labour Party is, after all, a Fabian-founded party. It is the purpose of their existence. So let me know if you want to see that.